And now, your go-to source for year-round fantasy hockey advice, DFS, and betting coverage. This is NHL Fantasy on Ice, presented by Skip, the official food delivery app of the NHL.
Brought to you by our good friends over at Skip. It's time for another episode of NHL Fantasy on Ice, Week 14 Mailbag Edition. Nick Alberga, Pete Jensen, and Anna Dew with you. What's going on, Pete? How are you?
What's up, Nick? Skip, of course, the official food delivery app of the NHL, and what a delivery, right? On Monday, Jamie Drysdale goes to Philly. Already had his first point, a power play point. You love to see it, guys.
This is where I thought that, I was hallucinating on Twitter, and I really missed the old verification badges, guys, because I thought that was a fake tweet when I first saw it. But there you have it. Jamie Drysdale is a point-per-game player so far with the Flyers.
It came out of nowhere, and we're going to talk more about that and many other things in the fantasy world right now with our guest today, Jake Hahn of SiriusXM NHL Network Radio. I don't think it's too late to say Happy New Year, man. How are you?
It's never too late to say Happy New Year. Technically, You could do it whatever you want. But yes, Happy New Year to you. Glad to be back with you guys. And I can't believe we're basically very close to at least the halfway point of the season. Some teams have hit 41 games. Other teams will get there relatively soon. So crazy how quickly we got here. And we got a bomb dropped on us on Monday with that Flyers-Ducks trade.
It was massive, and I think it's important to stress the correlation to the fantasy world. Now's the time to make that blockbuster trade. There's a lot of teams I think still think they're in it in redraft leagues and keeper leagues. Maybe you still think you're in it, but I think now's the time, and I think that's perfect because we're talking about a pretty big trade here. Jake, from a fantasy perspective, obviously not much going on right now for Cutter Gauthier. We think he's going to turn pro following this college season, but as Pete referenced there, I mean, Drysdale makes his debut, gets a PPA. That power play is bottom 3 in the league for the Philadelphia Flyers. So how do you like that look from a Philly point of view?
Yeah, like everyone else, I'm excited to see what that Ducks lineup could look like, but I still think we're a year or two away from that whole thing coming together. And I mean, it's exciting to put it on paper and see, Leo Carlsson, Cutter Gauthier, Mason McTavish, Terry Zegras, all these names, and we'll see if, maybe they're able to keep all of those guys and what they want to do in the future. But I think the immediate fantasy impact, obviously, is Jamie Drysdale. Pete mentioned off the top, picks up a power play point. It was actually on the second unit. I was watching that game, and the Flyers started with their second unit. I guess some of their first unit guys were just on the ice, even strength. So they go with the second unit. Drysdale gets a chance, immediate impact. He obviously gives all the credit to Morgan Frost there. He just kind of sends it over to him. Frost makes a great shot. I still think the fantasy impact for Drysdale, we have to temper our expectations a little bit because there's a lot of competition there in Philly, guys. And I don't think Torts is just going to hand the car keys over to this kid. He's going to have to earn his spot. He's going to have to earn his even strength ice time. He's going to have to earn his spot on the first power play. And hey, picking up a power play point in your first game is a great start. And I do think that spot, that quarterback spot on the first power play for Philly is fairly wide open. They've tried Zamula there and Cam York and Sanheim and so many different names over the course of the season. So I feel like eventually Drysdale gets a crack at it and maybe he can take it and run.
Jake, ever since this trade happened, I've gotten quite a few questions that were about the same player, and it was about Cam York specifically in keeper leagues. And a lot of folks said, is it time for me to just drop Cam York since Jamie Drysdale's now on the team in keeper leagues? What do you think?
Probably comes down to league size. If you're in a very deep league, like a 16-team league, maybe you're hanging on to him just because, okay, he's still getting some power play time, whether it's first unit or second unit. And it's still a team that's scoring, relative a decent amount of goals. So I don't mind hanging on to him in a deeper league, but I think in, any 10 to 12 team league, I feel like you're probably dropping him for someone on the waiver wire at this point. There's just too many defensemen there in Philly, right? And we don't know how it's going to play out and who Torts is going to favor here down the stretch. But with Drysdale added into the mix to an already competitive situation for a guy like Cam York, it's just another guy he's going to have to battle with for ice time.
The big thing you mentioned there was John Tortorella's name. So Drysdale plays 1946 in his Flyers debut. They actually dressed 7 defensemen, so keep that in mind. But there was a lot of stops and starts, Pete, with Drysdale in Anaheim. I don't think they're just, as Jake referenced, they're just not going to just give him the job. So on the Cam York front, I'm waiting and see on both these files. How'd you read the trade, Pete?
Well, I think in the short term, Philly's going to really benefit from this. Nobody's really talking about the fact that they're a contending team and we never expected them to be, and they went out and just addressed their biggest weakness. So I actually think their playoff chances are real now as opposed to before when, they couldn't hit the backside of a barn on the power play. Now they're really charging forward here in the second half. So I would pick up Drysdale without hesitation, keeper, non-keeper league. I love the fit on Power Play 1. I do believe he's going to get an extended look there. And then as for another Flyers defenseman, Travis Sanheim has been one of the biggest stories of the season this year. Curious to hear if you guys think he's going to take a dip. I know you were talking about Cam York, but I feel like a lot more people out there probably have Travis Sanheim right now and are a little worried.
I would say Sanheim would be more of a keep than York, at least for me here, guys. Zamula is the guy I kind of look at and I think, well, he's still technically on the first power play as we speak right now, and he was getting that role at least for the few games leading up to this Drysdale trade, but feels like he's barely hanging on to that. And Torts wouldn't be afraid to throw Sanheim back there, or maybe Drysdale if he continues to have some success, and at least give him some looks. And Torts hasn't been scared to mix up those power play units, whether it's the defenseman or the forwards, basically all season. So Zamula, I think, is the guy that might actually end up getting squeezed out and could be a healthy scratch some nights as well. Sanheim would be a keep for me, and I think York would be borderline.
I'm right there with you. I think when you look at Sanheim, he's the veteran. What is one thing, John Tortorella loves is veterans. So I would side with him over the youngster Cam York. Let's look now, Jake, at the Anaheim perspective. Obviously, a lot of moving parts. I think this is the beginning of something bigger when it comes to the trade deadline on March 8th. Lots of moving pieces. But Trevor Zegras gets hurt again, and somehow his name has found the trade market. I just want to ask you in general, your perception on Trevor Zegras in fantasy hockey is what? Like, I hate to say this, I think the guy's overrated. I think he's got a lot of skill set, a lot of everything to put together, but just can't find it on a consistent basis. And I understand why the rumors are out there, but how do you view Zegras from a fantasy point of view?
That classic saying, all sizzle, no steak, I think applies a little bit to Trevor Zegras. I don't want to say he's all sizzle. There's a little bit of steak there, but it's great to see the Michigan goal he scored this year was incredible. The way that he was able to put that in, and you just think, man, I'm glad this guy's in the league. Like, he's just fun to watch. He'll throw us those clips every once in a while, and he's an interesting character. But when it comes to fantasy hockey, I'm out on Trevor Zegras right now. I haven't seen him do it consistently. I think if I'm looking at Ducks, and I'm looking at Ducks that I like short-term, long-term, Mason McTavish, I think, is going to be the focal point of them turning it around in the future. Frank Vetrano's an interesting piece as well as we head towards the trade deadline, a guy that can really score, that I think teams would be very interested in. Hey, maybe the Ducks are just interested in keeping him around, but I've never really been big on Zegras. He's not a consistent shooter. And again, I think with the amount of forwards the Ducks are now looking at in that top 6 over the next couple of years, you do feel like someone has to go, and maybe you entertain making that deal for Trevor Zegras while he's still got some trade value.
Very busy, and kind of ironic that his name comes out in the trade market, and then he gets hurt like the same game, eh?
That's just the way it works. I feel like it's always the same stories with Trevor Zegras too. It's like when he's healthy, he shows us like a highlight reel goal and we're like, oh, this kid's the real deal. Then he gets hurt. He doesn't play. Everyone forgets about him. He's going to get traded. I don't know. I feel like there's bigger names out there. Do you remember back in the day when it was like the Jack Hughes versus Trevor Zegras show? And now Jack Hughes is in a completely different league. I feel like Trevor Zegras is exactly what Jake said, fun to watch, but like, where's his entire value as a hockey player? I don't know.
Just wanted to add that I have never called that goal the Michigan goal, and I never will, and especially after what happened Monday on the football field. Pete. But no, it's all good. It's impressive. But yeah, especially when you trade away like Zegras' best buddy, it sounds like the writing may very well be on the wall there. I think that we're going to be comparing these two teams, even though it's East versus West, for many years to come, because they quietly have two of the best 5 to 10 young cores in the league for keeper and dynasty league standpoint. So, a couple of years from now, you might see, Drysdale whipping it around on the power play with Michkov and something like that. And then, Leo Carlson, and whether or not Zegras is still there, you still got all these other guys, McTavish, and it's going to be fun to see Gauthier playing there as well.
Yeah, I tell you, the Bob Benders on this Gauthier kid, I know they're a little rattled there in Philadelphia, but you can't do that when Eric Lindros, that's the reason why he was a member of the Philadelphia Flyers. So, Jake, we could find out in a couple months. I mean, Gauthier started the World Juniors for Team USA. We could see this guy in the NHL very, very soon. And as everybody has put it here, I mean, it really is an embarrassment of riches up front for the Anaheim Ducks. But every year, so many stops and starts. I'm still trying to figure out, Jake, how the Ducks had that type of start and where they're at right now in the standings. It's baffling to me.
Well, I know, Nick, you're the president of the Revenge fan club, so you've got the Cutter Gauthier,
I can't
the
wait.
Philly Ducks matchups already circled whenever they are, even if they haven't even come out yet for next year's season. And I'm sure Philly fans are just going to roll out the red carpet for this guy when he comes back. But it is kind of amazing to see how far the Ducks have fallen, right? And I do think a lot of that start was smoke and mirrors. I felt it in the moment. There's a lot of third period comebacks, and it did seem unsustainable what the Ducks were doing early in the year. It was fun. It's great to see a young team, having fun coming back in games and picking up points the way Anaheim was. So I expected a little bit of regression, but didn't really expect it to look this bad. There's some nights where they just don't even look like they belong in the same league as the top teams in the NHL. So there's something wrong there. They're not playing with a great structure. It kind of just feels like, let's drop the puck and see what happens. And I think some changes need to happen in Anaheim before we can really take that team seriously.
I don't think anyone was taking this team seriously this season. I would be impressed if someone said that they were. I feel like this was a team that wasn't on our radar, and the beginning of their year was kind of a fluke. And now it seems like they're more so the Anaheim Ducks we expected. But a team that I thought was going to do well, Jake, that has been disappointing me, showing me flashes and disappointing me again, is the Minnesota Wild. Okay, I thought the coaching change finally turned this team around. Now they're disappointing me again, and we got a fan question from our good friends over at Skip about Matt Boldy. Now, I'm really high on this kid. I think he's absolutely worth keeping, but would you trade away a guy like Matt Boldy given the way the Minnesota Wild are looking?
I like the individual. I like the player a lot, so I'm with you on the fact that, short term, long term, I like Matt Boldy. I think he's a good player. I think he's capable of scoring a lot of goals in this league. He's not afraid to shoot the puck, which we like in fantasy hockey as well. That Minnesota team just looks like a disaster right now, though. The injuries have really caught up with them, and it's tough. Like, they could barely get anything going against the Dallas Stars this week in a home and home type series. They played Monday and Wednesday, and there's just nothing there. There's no offense at all. And I love my guy, Joel-Eriksson Ek. He's probably one of my favorite players in the league, but you can only ask this guy to do so much. He's playing so many minutes every single night. So you question who Boldy can play with right now, but it does seem like Kirill Kaprizov's injury is rather short term. When he comes back in, that's going to give the offense an injection of life. So maybe you look to the other side. You maybe buy low on a guy like Matt Boldy right now. While everyone's down on Minnesota, you catch that falling knife. You go for a guy like Boldy, heck, maybe even an Eriksson Ek, somebody in that team, because as much as it looks like Minnesota's going to miss the playoffs this year and it could be a lost season, there could still be some fantasy value in these players once Kirill Kaprizov comes back to this lineup.
Yeah, that's the angle I was actually going to take because, again, from an NHL reality point of view, I think they're cooked. They're done. And the big thing I mentioned here, obviously, is losing Kaprizov and Gustafsson. They're 1-5-2 in 8 games since losing the big boys there. But I think the buy low appeal is certainly there when it comes to Joel-Eriksson Ek and, others, as you mentioned, Boldy up front, Brock Faber to an extent. But I think Minnesota here, Pete, is in big time trouble. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
They are. They really threw Wallstedt into the wolves in the Lions' den last night. I mean, that's ridiculous, honestly. I'm even surprised that they started him in that game because Dallas is a really strong home team that could do that to anybody. But, 7 goals allowed. They left him out there. There's even buy low appeal after his NHL debut on Jesper Wallstedt. Again, it's a player we have very high hopes for in keeper and dynasty leagues. And don't write that kid off because of one bad game that he probably shouldn't have even been in there for in the first place.
And the thing, too, I would add is like the 15 mil against the cap, too, right? So you take Gustafsson, you take Kaprizov, and you add that 15 mil against the cap. And that's why, there's not much to work there with in Minnesota. I want to piggyback off that, Jake, because there's obviously a lot of conversation specifically on this podcast about Connor Bedard. We had a little funny, great running bet all season long with producer Bob Bender about the 68.5 points. Will he get there? Won't he get there? I was on the side he would. Producer Bob is doing a happy dance right now because it ain't going to happen. They're saying Bedard's 6 to 8 weeks having surgery. I'm a little disappointed. I want to see Bedard at All-Star Weekend, mix it up with the Matthews of the world, the Draisaitl's, the McDavids of the world. But I'll have producer Bob have the first word on this.
Oh, I think Connor will be involved somehow in All-Star Weekend in Toronto. Just a little hint there. I would imagine he's going to be involved somehow. I don't know exactly how, but somehow. I feel really good because Nick is waved the white flag already.
I'm done.
Jake, he's waved the white flag. He's already saying that Connor Bedard 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, likely he's not going to hit that point total. Bob Bender is going to be a victor. Hail to the victor, Bob B. Here's the hashtag. Bob was right.
Are you gonna get that trending now, Nick, on Twitter? Bob was right. We still have to finish the season. You never know. Bedard could come back, throw that cape on, go 3 points every single night, and hit the over. It is unfortunate though to see a young player like that go down. Hey, clean hit. It's a big boy league, and Brendan Smith he didn't really even move. He just kind of stood still, and Bedard runs into him, and it's like running into a brick wall. So maybe a learning moment for the kid and Connor Bedard. You hope he could still be involved in All-Star Week. It sounds like Bob has dinner plans with him or something like that. There's something he's keeping from us.
One, I wonder who's more hated right now, Cutter Gauthier in Philadelphia or producer Bob Bender in Chicago. And two, Pete's dreams might be coming true, guys. Jason Dickinson might be an NHL All-Star. We have to talk about that.
He should be. Yeah, if they have to pick somebody from the Blackhawks, who the heck are they going to pick? They picked the guy with double-digit goals and 60 hits and a plus rating.
Get the accountant, Scott Foster. Is he still around?
It's not even a question at this point. But I actually wanted to ask you, Jake. So one thing we didn't discuss on the last show was the fact that McDavid, in his rookie year, despite 48 points in 45 games, did not win the Calder Trophy. Remember, that was the year that Panarin came out of nowhere and won it playing on Kane's line with the Blackhawks. I think there is really a chance, even though Bedard is the odds-on favorite, like we discussed on the Action Network collab. Go back and listen to it. Like, there is a good chance that someone else could win this thing by default, because 8 weeks is 2 months, almost half of the season.
Yeah, it's so difficult because if there was a crop of 3 or 4 players really making a strong case, I would say, okay, he's probably got no shot now, right? If it was this tight race before he got hurt, and then you get an injury timeline like that where it could be as long as 2 months, you're thinking, well, his chances are probably over. But nobody was really putting pressure on him. I thought early in the year, Joe Woll could have built up a really, really strong case to win that award, because if he becomes the starting goaltender on the Maple Leafs and puts up great numbers, there you go. There's your case to maybe beat a guy like Connor Bedard. Unfortunately, he goes down, so his chances go out the window. Brock Faber was flying up odds boards already, even before Bedard gets hurt. I just struggle to think that he can put up enough points to challenge, especially in that Minnesota offense, the way that it's struggling right now. He's impressive. Wild fans should be very excited about Brock Faber and his future, but in terms of winning the award, I think it's difficult. I know there's someone Anna probably wants to make a case for, though, Anna.
Who?
So can you make your Pyotr Kochetkov case here?
I will be saying this every week until he wins the Calder, and then afterwards, I want everyone to I want a party. I don't even want a sandwich. I want an entire extravaganza, NHL Fantasy on Ice, Anna was right party, Pyotr Kochetkov decor all over, because this is the obvious answer here, guys. Like, the Carolina Hurricanes finally look like themselves. Kochetkov's in the crease as long as he's playing well. I think even if Freddie Anderson returns to the lineup, they're going to give him the shot to keep doing what he's doing. And if Carolina surges to the top of the league standings, looks really good heading into the postseason, how do you not give the Calder Trophy to a guy like Kochetkov?
I can picture a now 47-year-old Pyotr Kochetkov accepting the Calder Trophy award. Logan Cooley, Pete, I think is interesting because he was a name on our radar early in the season, and really hasn't had the type of rookie campaign. I actually had to give midseason awards in the Daily Faceoff yesterday, and my top 3 for the Calder were Bedard, Kochetkov, and Brock Faber. Is there anybody else, Pete, you see in that conversation right now?
I mean, I had Fantilli in my top 3 for the halfway point of the season, but again, the team is not really on his side. Maybe if they, get some guys back and he really puts up good point totals the rest of the season, maybe he could be in the mix. Wanted to add that with Minnesota, we do our top 10 rookie rankings on NHL.com/fantasy, and they are the only team with 3 players on that top 10, with Faber, Marco Rossi, who I believe is second among rookies in points, and then Wallstead. So again, some fan asked about Wallstead. He said he picked him up yesterday. Should he keep him after the bad game? I probably would, especially if you're in a deep league, to answer that fan question delivered by Skip. What do you think, Jake?
I think I've had about 35 goaltenders in fantasy hockey this year in one of my leagues. It's crazy the amount of injuries that we've gone through, and you're going 3-4 goalies deep in a lot of these teams right now. So probably comes down to your roster, who else is available on the waiver wire. I've kind of looked at my goaltending roster now, and I'm not afraid to just throw guys to the wire and find the next guy. Like you never know who's going to pop up and all of a sudden get a start. You never know when you're streaming the other Matt Murray on a Monday to start your fantasy week and he gets you a shutout. Like it's just crazy some of the names that we're getting to at this point. But yeah, matchup dependent for me. I think Wallstedt, if he's got a good matchup coming up or a team that you think Minnesota can actually beat, you hang on to him. I don't know about starting him in Dallas again, guys. That's probably the last time I'd be doing that this year.
Oh, man. Such a volatile position. This is the last year I'm selecting any goalie in the top 3 rounds. It just never works out. And Jake, believe it or not, our friends over at Skip brought us a new segment today. It's called Buy or Sell. I got 2 big prolific names for you, Jake. Are you ready to play this game?
Let's go. I'm ready.
Number 1, a guy you know pretty well. 8-3-0, 1.98, 934, 2 shutouts, 12 appearances. His name is Martin Jones. Are you buying or selling? Are you believing in this Adin Hill story right now?
It's tough because the sell point, he's so high right now, right? You'd be able to sell at a pretty nice spot, and the fact that eventually Joe Woll is going to come back, but it does feel like that's in the distant future. If you could get a decent package back, I wouldn't hate selling, just because, like I said, that value is so high, the numbers are so good right now. But I'm still going to go buy here. I think that it's legit. He's a veteran guy that's been around for a long time. I can't believe we're sitting here talking about Martin Jones as the starting goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But not only is he the starter until Joe Woll comes back, and I have no faith in Samsonov, even though he's been called back up, in taking that role back. When Joe Woll is healthy, Martin Jones becomes the backup in Toronto. And heck, even if Joe Woll struggles, there's no guarantee that Woll is going to come back and pick up right where he left off. So if Woll struggles, that net's still there for Martin Jones. So I think there's still long-term value for Jones the rest of the way in fantasy hockey. I will buy here.
I like it. I actually saw that Joe Woll was on the ice for an optional skate. They still said he's still a ways away, but that was actually after Leboff talked about on the Action Network collab that he is a dark horse for the Calder. If there is enough runway, he has that Toronto backing, let's be real, and it's like level playing field. Like he's an equal to Kochetkov in my eyes. So like as soon as Woll comes back, interested to see how much runway could be back. I like Martin Jones. I've been a fan of him in years past, despite a lot of slander coming from the hockey world. But this is Joseph Woll's team the second he gets back.
My takeaway from this is I just want someone to love me as much as Jake loves Joe Woll. I feel like his name has been brought up on this podcast at least like 25 times so far, but rightfully so. I mean, he is the guy in Toronto. That crease has just always been a mess, though, guys.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually going to sell on Martin Jones. I do think, that the sample size is large enough in this guy's career that tells me his numbers are going to go back a bit. I did some digging last night. A lot of the opponents recently have been fluff opponents. We all know how the Leafs do against bad teams, but still can't look past 2 against San Jose, 1 against Anaheim, played Columbus. I mean, there's some inferior opponents in that mix. I want to see now how he does, right? They got the Islanders on Thursday. They got Colorado on Saturday. They got Detroit on Sunday. So I think the proof will be in the pudding. I still would give the upper hand to Joe Woll, but I don't think Woll's anywhere close to returning. He's been practicing a couple days, but a high ankle sprain, as somebody who came back from that type of injury, it takes a while. And talking to Carter Hutton, who co-hosts my show sometimes, he was a former goalie in the league. He said that's a hard injury to come back from. You're pushing off with your ankles at all times. So stay tuned for that. Jake, the second goalie on this list, the red-hot Seattle Kraken. You can make an all-star team with former Ottawa Senators goalies, by the way, which, again, very, very ironic because that team cannot get a save right now. But Decord, 11-5-8, 2.28, 923, 2 shutouts, 25 appearances. What do you make of Joey Decord? Are you buying or selling, Jake Hahn?
It's so hard to sell a guy that's playing as well as Joey Decord, and he's just a great story as well. A guy that started in the ECHL. He didn't play there for a long time, but he's been in the American Hockey League for a couple of years. Actually put up really good numbers in the American Hockey League for Coachella Valley last year. So maybe he tipped his hand a little bit to say, hey, I'm a guy in the system and I'm waiting for an opportunity, and he gets his opportunity this year and he's just kind of running with it. So the Kraken are playing with an instilled confidence, and I think a lot of it comes from Joey Decord, right? They're getting those saves in big moments, and I think it's reverberating through the rest of the team. I still worry about their goal scoring long term. Like when you look at it, only 3 guys have scored double-digit goals for Seattle all season. So if Daccord does start to struggle, do the wins go away for Seattle a little bit? It's been impressive to see them battle back. I think I'm leaning more towards a sell here, just because I still don't know if I totally buy into this Seattle team as a playoff team the rest of the way, as great as this run is. And I just think his value would be incredibly high at this moment for a guy you probably just scooped up off of the waiver wire.
And with Seattle, I mean, I feel like they still haven't put their best foot forward offensively. Jaden Schwartz just came back from injury, scored a goal. Nice one the other day. Burakovsky's back. They have the Tatar wrinkle now to add to their top 9 forward group. And I just feel like they're starting to pick up steam. The Winter Classic certainly helped, but even before that, and the second half could be a very strong one where they remind everybody that they're a bona fide playoff team. I expect them to be there at the end of the day without much hesitation. So I would buy on Joey Daccord while you still can.
Yeah, I don't expect Seattle to make it, so I'm Team Jake here, and I feel like I would sell. I just feel like the Kraken have too many holes, and we're looking at them through rose-colored glasses based off of their playoff run last year, when I feel like the team isn't as deep as other teams in the Western Conference, and they're all in the mix of it right now, guys. They're all there. Like, Calgary could go on a run. I hope the Yotes manage to find a way to make it in. There's a lot of teams just out there waiting to sneak a spot, and I don't know if Seattle stays there.
Yeah, the Pacific in general, there's just so many moving parts. If we were to talk 2 months ago, there was no way Edmonton's going to be in that conversation. Look at the run they're on. I can't believe social media sometimes. People are saying Stuart Skinner for Vezina. Like, give me a break. Bouchard should not be in the running for the Norris Trophy. I'm sorry, that guy can't play a lick of defense, but I digress. Anything else to add, Jake, on that Pacific division? I mean, you look at some of the teams involved. I did want to get your honest take, because we have had a lot of questions the last couple of weeks delivered by Skip about Pierre-Luc Dubois. Man, what a tough start for this guy in Tinseltown. 2 goals in the last 18 games on the 4th line now.
There's almost no fantasy value there anymore. Like,
0.
He's stuck in that third line role, not a lot of power play time either. So I don't know what we can expect unless the Kings get injuries and he has to start to play up in the lineup a little bit and that opportunity opens back up for him. I think his fantasy value is basically shot at this point. The landscape of the Western Conference has really taken shape. I mean, when you look at the East, it's so hard to figure out. It's pick a couple teams that you think that you like maybe better than the rest of the group. But in the West, it kind of feels like 7 teams are playoff teams at this point. Your top 3 in the Central, your top 3 in the Pacific, and then the Oilers, who've made that charge to not only become a playoff team, but maybe even get themselves back into that top 3 in the Pacific and even push for home ice advantage in the first round. So really, it looks like it's going to be one playoff spot for about 5 to 6 teams in the Western Conference, which is bad news if you're one of those teams. A team like Seattle that's made up a lot of ground, and full credit to them for doing so. But, what are you chasing down? It's not like the rest of the conference has really waited around for you, and you're probably going to be battling for one spot with about 5 or 6 teams, which becomes extremely difficult.
The fascination begins, certainly, doesn't it, Pete?
Definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing who makes the next trade, right? First, it was not technically a trade, but the Patrick Kane addition for Detroit. They're still in the mix. Now Philly makes a trade to upgrade on defense. Who do you think the next team that's going to be? Is it going to be Toronto or Tampa? These teams don't have much cap space to work with. Makes it very difficult.
Tampa's a team I'm really starting to worry about, guys.
I don't
know. Yeah, it's tough because I actually do think that there's enough there where they can make the playoffs, right? With John Cooper behind the bench, I think we can agree he's one of the better head coaches out there. Vasilevsky, we know what he's capable of. And look, Kucherov is having a Hart Trophy season. So I think there's enough there for you to convince me, okay, they can lock down a wild card spot and, the pedigree's there in certain areas where they can make it. But past that, like it's really hard to look at this Lightning roster and think that they can go on a deep, deep playoff run this year.
I would agree with you as well on that front, Jake. Always great to have you, and we'll talk soon, buddy. Thanks for this. Round of applause.
Always great, guys. Yeah, hopefully the first of many in 2024.
Jake, we'll see you in Toronto, okay?
Yes.
Make sure that room you're in right now is all retrofitted for a studio. We're going to be on site at Jake Hahn's apartment. Thanks again for joining us, as always.
Already cleaned out the spare room for you, Bob. Hopefully I can get in on the dinner rezo with you and Connor Bedard.
Talk to you soon.
So we mentioned earlier on this week, a lot of injuries, including in between the pipes, and suddenly the Boston Bruins, they're racking up in the injury department here, Pete. Linus Ullmark, a lower body injury, obviously an uptick and a boost here for Jeremy Swayman. Look out for the name Brandon Bussey, 25 years of age, NHL debut could be coming here for the Boston Bruins. External options, Joey Decord, Alex Nedeljkovic, Sam Ersson's been playing good as well for the Philadelphia Flyers. What do you make of that injury, Pete?
I mean, once you see a timetable, place something potentially on Swayman for the Vezina, because that's one guy in a very wide open race that is like, he's been one of the best goalies in the league statistically for a long time, like 3 seasons now in terms of his save percentage. And if he gets like the higher starting volume and with how steady the Bruins hand has been this season, I would not be surprised at all. He might even move into front runner territory in a matter of a couple of weeks if he gets the full starting volume for Boston, Swayman.
No, I agree. I feel like Jeremy Swayman's futures odds just go straight up because the Boston Bruins, guys, every time we think they're going to fall off, they never do. So him being in that crease, playing the way he has, I feel like it's looking pretty decent for him.
I was going to say there's 2 teams I'm just not fading anymore, the Boston Bruins and the Vancouver Canucks. I'm so over that. I think we got to bring up what happened earlier this week. Producer Bob, if you want to take the mic, you called the Pittsburgh Penguins to win, and well, they won, and I believe you're getting a free pastrami sandwich here. Yeah.
Wow. I'm taken by surprise here. Yes. Actually, today, I hope Anna and Peter are in the office because Pete will be paying for the pastrami sandwich, and Anna will be paying for the knish and the soda. Penguins delivered for old Bob Bender, which is nice.
Yeah, I think when Bob makes picks like that come out of left field and then they hit, I mean, that's the beauty of Bob Bender. So I was impressed by that. I didn't see that much, right? Like Pittsburgh had lost to Buffalo last weekend, and they're just been really a topsy-turvy team. But you brought the heat, man. I'll get you that sandwich.
I'm going to slather that mustard on there. There's going to be so much mustard. It's going to be drowning in mustard, Nicholas. Oh, it's going to be great.
Bob's seeing the board right now, Anna. There's no secret about that. When he calls his shot the way he did, we have to listen next time, okay?
He has some inside information, guys. Yeah. I don't know. He's talking about Bedard getting hurt. I think the Flyers were just rattled by Cuddy Gauthier.
Cuddy, we're calling him Kid Cuddy now. Cuddy Gauthier.
Leaving them out to dry. So I'm saying that it was like a mental health day for the Flyers, and that's why they did what they did.
But if you're to pick between those 2 teams for the rest of the season, like if one of them's going to make the playoffs, Pittsburgh or Philly, are you picking Pittsburgh? Are you confident enough in them? Or was it just like a single game thing for you?
No, it was a single spot scenario. I don't like what I've really seen from Pittsburgh this season. I would like the Flyers to get in. I think they're gritty. Tort's doing his thing. They get Drysdale. But I still think it's an uphill road for the Flyers as well to get into the playoffs.
Did you guys see who's playing on Monday night, by the way? Philadelphia at St. Louis. You know what that means? Kevin Hayes revenge. Can't wait for that. Looking at tonight's slate, think I like the over Detroit and Edmonton 6.5. I did like the under between Winnipeg and Chicago, but I see the number coming in at 5.5. I'm not that excited about that, but I do think Chicago's more than happy to play that style. Winnipeg, what is it, 30 straight games they've surrendered 3 goals or less? Like Hellebuck's running away with the Vezina Trophy right now, but those are 2 games I have my eye on here, Pete. Do you have anything else you're looking at?
I mean, for New Jersey, they're going into Tampa without Jack Hughes. I kind of lean with Tampa there, especially how New Jersey's goaltending has been a mess this season. So that's one that jumped out to me. Hopefully that Fantasy on Ice league, I mean, my team is decimated. I can't wait until Jake Ottinger comes back, Seth Jones comes back, because Jack Hughes is going to be out for a little while. And I think somebody else is injured on my team too, Kaprizov. So, yeah, I really need Otter back, right?
I don't even want to talk about that league. I have not had a good time.
Still lost, Anna?
League. I don't think so, actually. I don't think so.
Okay.
The last
time I checked, she passed me. You
did I?
Because of my injuries. Yeah, you had the injuries early, so you're back.
Comeback kid. But another spot I like tonight that I want to talk about was the Ottawa Senators Buffalo Sabres, guys.
Oh no!
The Please Ottawa Senators, my favorite game of the year. The 2 teams we hyped up the most in the preseason.
You did.
So did Pete. FTR. Okay. So did Pete. And I feel like the Ottawa Senators aren't like the worst look here. And something we haven't mentioned on this podcast yet, guys, Shane Pinto nearing return for the Senators.
Who delivered the most for you in fantasy hockey this week? That is the question. It's time for the Deliver of the Week, brought to you by Skip, the official food delivery app of the NHL. Pete, I'll go first. I like Tyler Seguin. He's on fire, turning back the clock the last 6 games, 6 goals, 3 assists for the suddenly red-hot Dallas Stars. Who do you have, Pete?
Sagan has definitely been rejuvenated by playing with Matt Duchene this season. You like to see that. I'll go with Jamie Drysdale. It's trade season right now, and he delivered with the power play assist in his Flyers debut. I like his upside for the rest of the season. I'll reiterate. Remember back to his rookie season, he's missed a lot of time because of injury, but he had 32 points, 12 on the power play. Excited what he could do down the stretch.
I'm going with Matthew Tkachuk. Everyone's been waiting for this guy to start scoring goals, and he's been delivering as of late. 6 goals, 14 points in his last 6 games. Matthew Tkachuk is very much back, guys.
That he is. The Florida Panthers are an absolute wagon. Pete, what do we have coming up? I guess a week 15 waiver wire edition next week, right?
Yeah, we're going to be past the halfway point there, and then when we do the next Action collab, will be our awards picks at the halfway point in the season and stuff like that. So, yeah, go back and listen to Action Network NHL collab presented by Bet365. It was a great show from Monday that covered all the overarching themes around the league.
All right, good to go. Many thanks once again to Jake Hahn from SiriusXM NHL Network Radio for stopping by. Once again, thanks to producer Bob Bender. For Pete Jensen and Anna Dua, I'm Nick Alberga. You've been listening to NHL Fantasy on Ice, delivered by Skip, the official food delivery app of the NHL.